Well, that said, Arby's up first. He says, I thought I understood the following. Then some guy that pronounces from the pulpit of YouTube said the opposite. So I'm back at the altar of sooth to ask. That's funny, Arby. I like your phrasing. For a lead gen site or a directory site, I thought best SEO would come from having both pages and blog posts, which demonstrate recency and cause engagement. The opposite view was it's best to have just pages with ideally skyscraper articles, since the bump from having constantly updated content was overcome by not just the time devoted to blogging, which could be better spent on more do one time, last a long time. Okay. But also the risk that future blog posts dilute the SEO structure. Yeah, let's call it kind of what you call keyword cannibalization, or the risk that the blog post quality tends to decline over time since you're more focused than setting up the site and getting ranked in the more focused when setting up the site and getting ranked in the first 60 days, or that once there are a number of blog posts, each additional one brings incrementally less increase in topical relevance. Okay, so you set the stage for the questions. Have you tested this? This is simply a case of judging what is the best use of our time, blogging, building a new site, more social, etc. Okay, well, look, my thoughts on this are, your pillar pages or your cornerstone content or whatever, your top of silo pages. Those are the ones that you want long form content. You want to spend time optimizing to the best that they can be optimized. And then from there, for me, it's, I like activity. It doesn't always have to be adding additional posts to add depth to silos. As you said, you can get to a point where it's like diminishing returns. But I do like to, publish blog posts within the silo to start to achieve the ranking results that I want. And then once I get the result that I want or close to the result that I want, I like to shift, at least for me, what I do with my projects is shift to more focusing on just GMB stuff from that point. Now I'm talking about, because pretty much all I do is local. So once I get a local page, local landing page ranked to where I want it to rank, then what I like to do is focus in on just GMB activity and press releases. So it's about continuing the content marketing, but not necessarily on the blog. For clients, we always do blog posts. And that's just because they're paying for the activity. Does that make sense? But for lead gen assets, typically once I get them ranked, then it's just about publishing GMB posts and the occasional press. And I say occasional, but we stay consistent with press releases. We usually do 2 press releases per month per location. But in GMB posts, because here's the thing, I embed the GMB, and we teach this, guys, but embed the GMB website into the money site page anyways, right? The corresponding money site page. And then if you're publishing GMB posts and you're collecting reviews, it's dynamically updating that page anyway through the GMB iframe, right? The GMB website iframe. And so for me, that's what I like to do is I tend to try to get the results that I want with blog posts and, traditional silo, like publishing supporting articles, I mean. And then once I get close to the desired effect that I want, then I just kind of take over and do, like I said, the consistent strategy is GMB activity posts. They don't have to be all siloed together. And then also, press releases. And those 2 things alone typically keep everything active enough to where it will stay ranked. And that's just typically how I do things. So I don't know if that really answers your question, but that's kind of my strategy. Marco, do you want to take that on?
Yeah, because, all right, there's so many pundits and gurus and ninjas who have no clue about what's taking place algorithmically, and who have no clue about what it is that we're talking about. We're talking about a weighted database. That's it. Now, in each niche, of course, different variables, different nodes are going to be weighted differently because different things apply. Different things are taking place within these different niches. Even in sub niches of that same niche, different weights can be given to different nodes. Added to that, when you do a silo, if you don't interlink it correctly, it's going to atrophy over time. The more hops that you add to that silo, the more it's going to atrophy because of the hops. Google did this on purpose. People don't understand what's going on algorithmically, and it's all math. And it doesn't matter if it's local, if it's global. I've said time and again, local is relative to what it is that you're trying to do, because there is no distance, no geographic distance. When we're talking about these things, you can overcome, as a matter of fact, any limiting factors, as long as your entity is weighted properly, as long as your nodes are weighted properly, to account for that proximity factor that Google inserts. So anything that Google inserts to atrophy or to limit whatever it is that you're doing can be overcome with enough weight in your nodes. So what do? We blog, we set up our silo structure, we interlink our way, not everybody else's way. Let them atrophy. What we do is exponentiate what we do. And we leave that, then we go, as you said, off page. We do go into that GMB. We do recommend iframing the GMB because that gives it that freshness. That gives it that freshness factor, but it's also a link building method because you can push power from your GMB to your G site, to your money site, or however it is that you set up your interlinking, so that anything you do after that pushes power into whatever it is that you're doing, and it pushes, if you do it right, if you do it properly, if you do it the way we show, it's exponential power. And exponential power will overcome any limiting factors because the limiting factors, the dampeners, are linear. And if then else, if the dampening factors that have been inserted are linear, then if you're adding exponential power, you're overcoming the linear dampeners. Now I know I may be getting too technical for you guys, and it's okay. Go back and watch this again and listen to it and go and investigate, read the patents, look at the algorithms, look at everything that's in place. And if you still can't get it, come over to where we show it. I mean, Adam, I don't know if Adam is still here, or Bradley dropped the affiliate link to the Heavy Hitter Club, because this is where we show it. This is where we show case studies where we're applying these methods, this methodology in a systematic way, in developing the process, showing you how to develop the entity the right way so that it does not atrophy. If your silo is atrophying over time, it's because of the way that you've set up your interlinking structure. It's not properly set up, and you're not being shown how to boost the power that you're losing, or how to make up for the power that you're losing. So that's the problem. It's not the blogs that you're adding, it's that they're not being added the right way, is that not being interlinked the right way, and you're not pushing power into everything the right way. That's my take on that. When you do entity-based SEO, so we call it what it is. It's entity-based, worryless SEO. We don't care about updates. We don't care about anything because we're in that database pushing the math the right way. And it does not dilute the SEO structure if you do it right. It does not, what else did he say? The quality tends to decline. No, why should it decline? You're adding fresh, unique, relevant content that's updated on a regular basis. So there you go. So you're actually incrementally increasing the topical relevance, not decreasing.
Yeah, and just to add to that, like for clients, I said we continually publish blog posts for clients, but very strategically, very specifically, we use the curation method, which isn't necessarily about targeting specific keywords and things like we would with the initial post supporting posts when we're trying to get the initial ranking push. That's more about activity. And as Marcus said, it's about kind of engaging the activity part of the algorithm, right? Like the freshness factor. But by that, we just do stuff that's topically relevant that we use curated posts for, because that way we're adding activity to the site on a regular basis, but it's not necessarily competing for any one of the target keywords that we initially published within supporting posts, if that makes sense. So it's a way, again, it's curated posts, and we have a training program called Content Kingpin that goes specifically about how to curate posts for like money site posts. And that's for, again, always activating and keeping that freshness factor activated. And again, I talked about this recently, but there's a OneUp app, .io it's called. They've got a GMB post scheduler that will post from RSS feeds to GMB, and that works great too. It's very limited in how many RSS feeds you can have in the account, but you can upgrade, you can contact support, and they'll allow you to add additional RSS feeds for $3 per month per RSS feed. So it's reasonable in my opinion, because the level of automation that it allows you're either going to pay a VA to produce blog posts for you, or you can pay $3 a month and have your blogs from your blog posts from your money site automatically published to GMB. Now, you can't silo those together because of the way that it works, but it's the activity post. So what I'm saying is, for like curated blog posts, for example, they're not necessarily targeting specific keywords. It's more about, they're still going to be thematically relevant to whatever category they're placed in, but they're more about the activity. So those become perfect types of blog posts to automate syndication to and republishing to GMB through something like OneUp app, right? Because what it does is it pulls in the GMB, or excuse me, the blog post title is the post body, the text within the post body of the GMB post, and that's all it pulls in. So it's going to have whatever the title of the post was is the text in the post. It's going to pull the featured image in as the image, and it's going to link the CTA button back to the post URL on the money site. So it's a great way to automate. And again, it's to where you're not diluting the silo, but you're just adding freshness factor, which then can auto-populate GMB. Again, more freshness, which if you have that embedded in your money site page, it's going to get the bots crawling because it sees new content, and it's going to dynamically update the page. And so again, it's just a kind of way to build these systems to help become more efficient with everything you do, right? And so getting back to Arby's question, because I see like, it keeps going, but the next section of that was, and I remember this now, Arby, from when you brought this question up last week about whoever was speaking from their YouTube pulpit that said publishing a blog category and in nesting or placing your supporting articles in the blog category. To me, again, that makes zero sense.
Yeah.
0 cents. Because in your follow-up question to that, wouldn't the blog only power up the home tier and it's probably a primary keyword? You're asking, like, again, for here, like, my SEO sunglasses make me wonder and ask what is actually the value of a blog category. I don't see one. I don't understand. Maybe he knows something I don't. But if you're creating categories that are mirroring your top level service or product pages or topical category pages, whatever it is that you're trying to do. Again, I'm coming at it from a local perspective. So for me, it's going to be top level location or service categories, either one. And so if I have a top level category, I'm going to, location landing page, for example, I'm going to create a category for that location. And then I'm going to redirect the category URL to that location landing page. And then I'm going to publish supporting posts in that category so that the whole taxonomy structure within WordPress is pushing all of the link flow for all posts within that category up to the location landing page. I can't imagine why anybody would ever want to optimize a blog category. Like, what do you rank a blog category for? I don't know. Maybe somebody else can answer that question for me. So again, I don't know what this guy's strategy is. I'm not going to, I'm not going to badmouth somebody. I don't even know what their strategy is. Maybe there's a purpose for it, but until that purpose is explained, I don't understand it. And so I'm going to say, I don't see any purpose or benefit of having a blog category when you should have categories, topical, service, or product-based categories on your site already. And those should be, in my opinion, unless if you're running a blog where it's normal for people to come want to look at a particular blog category and see all the posts published within that category, then you can still have your category pages as like an index page, right? A category archive page. But for most, again, local websites, it makes sense to redirect the category URL to the top of silo page. Because then again, the taxonomy structure within WordPress, all of that link flow from properly nested articles, and as Marco said, properly interlinked silo articles, is going to flow up through the internal linking, which is more important than the taxonomy links anyways, but also through the taxonomy structure back up to the top of silo page, which is where you want to direct traffic anyway, if that makes sense. So that's my take on it, Marco. I know you probably want to expand on it.
Absolutely. What are we talking about? WordPress taxonomy, it all renders as HTML. Hello. Who the hell doesn't know? So pages, posts, category is all HTML. So what are we trying to do with that HTML? What are we trying to do with all that data? What is it that we're talking about? We're trying to push the top level category page. So let's be careful about what we're talking about. I'll give you an example. We're trying to rank for yellow widgets, and everything that we add to that, call it post, call it page, call it, I don't know, call it chicken nuggets. We're going to do that to rank for yellow widgets. So we're going to add the topical relevance as we go into the silo. The silo is what matters. The topical relevance of that silo is what matters. The entity, tune, content, and the schema that we add to that are what matters. And then we interlink everything the right way so that the power flows properly. And we're going to push. We're no longer bottom feeders. Cannibalization comes because what we were doing before is bottom feeding. And so we have all of these pages that come into play when we have these long tails. So it's not, there's no proper cannibalization, no proper interlinking, so that we provide that buoyancy for that yellow widgets page that we're trying to rank, which is where the money is going to come. But we're also trying to rank those blog posts. We want the power to continue flowing, but those blog posts will naturally come up also because of the power that you're pushing into that market level word or entity that you're working on. So everything else becomes irrelevant once you realize what you're doing, which is pushing data into Google, and that's all we're doing. Then the math takes over and all of this other shit becomes irrelevant. It's not really understanding what's going on, which is simply Google wants to know all it can about a specific entity, what yellow widgets. If you do a better job than anybody else explaining everything about those yellow widgets, you win. And that includes content. It includes the schema. It includes the link building. It includes iframes plus link building. Press releases, which is a form of link building. Link building into your press releases. Iframing those, just stacking. We stack power on power, and we exponentiate our power so that we outrank anyone in any niche. Any niche, it becomes wide open. Doesn't matter. The competition becomes irrelevant because we do a better job of sculpting our entity than anybody else. That's how this is done, and that's how this is taking place. And anybody telling people different, because it's a post and because it's a page and because it's a category and all this other shit is doing you a disservice, because it all renders in HTML. And the bot comes in and it looks at the code. Doesn't give a shit if you got a blog post. It could give a crap. It wants the math. It wants the data. How good is your data? And how good a job are you doing of describing the data and all those variables that you're feeding? That's it.
So that's great questions, by the way, Arby.
Yeah.
If we were giving out prizes for the best question today, Arby would be the winner.
Absolutely.
Interestingly, one of the terms you just mentioned, Marco, if you interlink it, if you stack your keywords properly and you set your keyword theme, your keyword set properly, and then you silo and you interlink properly by stacking the content optimized for that keyword theme properly, then that creates buoyancy, right? That's a rising tide lifts all boats. And that's what Marco was talking about. And that's interesting because, as we've been talking about in the last several months, is that, entity tuned content is really where it's at for, I think ranking now is 80% on page. At least in my experience recently, it has been. Don't get me wrong, link building and off page is still important, but if you get all your on page stuff right, and that includes entity tuned content, especially at tier 1, your money site, that's a given. But for your tier 1 content, you do the same. And what happens is, again, if you're doing that, then your blog posts start to rank, right? Especially if you start adding some off page stuff in there. Then you can power those up. But if you've got really well thought out, well produced, well optimized content, then the blog posts start to rank. And a link from a blog post, an internal link from a blog post that is ranking, is more valuable than a link from an internal blog post that isn't, because it's going to have natural traffic. And that activity, again, Marco's art, activity, relevance, trust, and authority, that activity, the relevance is there. That's why it's ranking. The activity is there. The trust and authority is there, so it wouldn't stay ranked, right? So all of those signals kind of get activated when you have blog posts that rank too. And again, over the past several years, I haven't really cared about blog posts for ranking purposes, but more recently, we've taken a more active approach at doing long form blog posts, not as many, because you don't need as many to be able to accomplish what it is that I'm talking about. Then, like I said, more for the activity, the freshness factor, we just do curated posts where we're not necessarily pushing a particular keyword. It's just more about activity. So again, I think there's a really, really good question, Arby, and I appreciate that you asked it.